Pants off. That's what we say every Tuesday morning. It's not Tuesday morning. We're talking anyway with
Jeremy, the Guitar Hunter.
It's not Jonathan Robinson.
I know. We look similar. We're brothers.
And I said it when you first came in. You were much more attractive in person.
Hey.
I'm not saying that's like bad for your editing or just you're just like a good looking dude.
Good color, contour, shape.
I just expected you to be like so much like older and like gruffer and like meaner.
Hey. Okay, I'll take that.
No, he looks good. Like, so ladies out there, if you're interested, he's married.
Fight my wife.
Anyway, so we're going to talk about guitar buying and selling nightmares.
Oh, good.
And dreams, maybe.
Okay.
The good ones that come, because and you're an expert at this. This is what you do.
I buy and sell mini guitars.
In fact, and this, I mean, it sounds like a pitch, but you got a thing out there that you teach people how to do this.
Yeah, because I mean, it's such a cool, like you have so many amazing experiences buying and selling guitars, connecting with people. And the reality is like, so I have a course called Write Guitars Faster. And
What's
covers
it called again?
Write Guitars Faster.
Okay.
Because it will cover three things. It teaches you how to buy the right guitars, how to sell the wrong guitars, because we're going to buy the wrong guitars. And so I'd teach you how to get the money back out of those so that you can build a meaningful collection. So like you can have a group of guitars behind you that long after you and I are gone, somebody can look at those and be like, I know what Baxter cared about. I know what he liked.
All BC Riches. Mm-hmm. Not the acoustics, just the electrics.
That Novations.
God, don't get me started. Because they are like Ovation, like diehards.
I know.
Like I got the greatest. I did play one, an Ovation 12 string. That was from the 90s. That was amazing.
I played a classical that was like...
It was amazing.
Sounded like Heart. Yeah, and I got it.
Yeah, but it's few and far between.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's break into the stories. Thanks for sharing that tidbit about your course.
Oh, sure.
Let's break into give me one.
Well, so I recently told this story on my YouTube channel, but I had a Les Paul Custom get stolen from me. One day I'm working at a guitar shop by myself. I was like 18. Dream job. I had been offered this job. I came in one day to the local guitar shop, kind of like your shop, cool old stuff, high-end stuff, and the guy that was there had an old D45.
Awesome.
And he was like, tell me everything you know about this. I didn't know that this was a job interview. And I was like, oh, well, it's, pre-84 because it doesn't have a truss rod, and it's this and this, and these tuners, and it's in a brown case, so it must be, I'd bet it's an 82 or 83. And he was like, it's an 82.
You're hired.
And he was like, yeah, you want to work for me? I was like, sure. So I went and I quit my job washing dishes at the university and then started the next day. But yeah, a couple months into that job, I was trained up enough that I could...
What was the name of the shop?
It was the Guitar and Amp Center.
Awesome.
So it's in Harrisonburg, Virginia. So it's gone now, closed down in 2013. But it was just the guy who started it. I mean...
Ready to pack it up.
Yeah, I mean, he had a great... He sold an amazing collection, made a bunch of money, and was able to sail off into the sunset.
Now tell us about this guitar.
So I was working by myself one day, and I was young, 19 or so, and I'm working in a guitar shop, and a guy and his girlfriend come in. Now, an important detail of this story is that this guy is a juggalo, and if you don't know what a juggalo is...
I was like, what's a juggalo? I'm thinking like, is he part of the Insane Clown Posse?
Yes.
Is that what that is?
Yes.
Oh my God, how did I know that? I'm so proud of myself.
Yeah, so this dude's
Don't act like you don't know.
Okay, I'm a secret juggalo too.
So this dude's nickname was Meatball.
Meatball. I knew, the one I knew was, his name was Tampon.
Oh, God.
Continue.
Okay.
He was actually World Inferno friendship. Yeah, he wasn't a juggalo.
So Meatball came in. He wasn't in makeup, but he was in full juggalo, like giant, like Jinko jeans and giant clothes. He came in with his girlfriend, and the way that our store was set up, we had like the main showroom, and then we had a smaller room where we'd keep the PAs. And so she was like, hey, I have a question about PAs. And we walked in the back, and she's asking me questions about like, can this make me a better singer? Or can this, well, what about drums? We don't have a drummer. And the way she'd positioned it, she's kind of looking over my shoulder, and so the boyfriend was in just plunking around on a guitar. And then I close up shop, and I realize there's an empty hook. I'm like, oh man, I don't think, it wasn't super uncommon for us to have a couple of open hooks, but it stuck in my mind. And then the next morning, my boss came back.
Hey, did you sell the Les Paul?
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I was looking through the receipts. I didn't see the Les Paul. I was like, oh boy. And we sold a bunch of Les Pauls, but I knew which one he's talking about. It was a 78 natural Les Paul custom.
Speaking of, there's a 78 Les Paul Deluxe there.
Oh, cool.
76 Les Paul custom.
Sweet. So yeah, so this was a natural and it was just not there. And he's like, okay, well, maybe it's somewhere else. Let's go check and see if the case is still here. So we went in the back and looked at the case, and the case was there. Okay. And that's the moment I realized for sure, like, oh, the guy and the girlfriend, Meatball. What's Meatball's real name? Did Meatball ever get caught? So we called the cops. Well, I asked my boss, I was like, what do we do? I'm so sorry. Please don't fire me. I don't want to wash dishes again. And so he was like, okay, well, this isn't the first time something's been stolen. We'll call the cops. We called the cops. They asked me if I knew who it was. And I was like, oh, it's this guy named Meatball. Like, we got him. I think his name is Josh. And they're like, we know Meatball. So they go to his house. And apparently, I think they had a warrant, but they said they didn't even have to execute the warrant because they opened the door. They knocked on the door. Yeah, the guy opened it, and it's sitting on the couch behind him. We'll be taking that. Yeah, and so he gave the guitar back, but he'd used a box cutter and then like a pocket knife to scratch out the serial number. Oh, really? So when it came back, it was like my boss tried to fix it and like just sanded it smooth. Why? Was he planning on selling it or keeping it? I don't know. I think he just. That's so dumb. So my boss, so they basically said you can go after him for damages. He stole a thing over $500, so it would be a felony, but you'd have to press charges. And we knew there's no real recourse. There's no recompensation here. So we got the guitar back and sanded down the serial number, and then just put finish back on it, so it's about the same color. But then we ended up taking about $1,000 loss on it, and you have to kind of sell it. And so the guy who owns it now watches my YouTube channel. So he sent me pictures. That's cool. But he said, like, don't mention my name. Don't, he's like, because it's you own a guitar that, you own a guitar that it's like a branded title for a car. That's kind of cool, though, to have that. I like sort of guitars that come into my. Yeah. Well, yeah, there was a guy that worked at the guitar shop with me a couple years after that I was like looking around for a shotgun. I was like, I want to go shoot skeet sometime. And this is just like, he's straight up hillbilly. And he calls me after work that night. He's like, hey, man, scale of 1 to 10. How important are serial numbers to you? It's like 10. 10 of 10. He's like, all right. I was like, what kind of guns are you looking at? Very important. And he's like, don't ask me about my mountain ways. Well, I mean, so you've been buying and selling guitars for how long now? 20 years. Because you were a teenager? I was like 14 when I'm 34 now. God, we're so old. Oh, wait, you're a lot younger than me. Never mind. But no, that's a long time to be selling guitars. Yeah. Well, because my whole thing was that I realized very quickly, I do not have enough money to buy the guitars I want to buy. My best chance is to get a guitar, be clever, buy, swap, trade. And something that sort of brought me to you years ago, it was 3 years ago, I watched one of your videos on why you decided to stop selling on Reverb. Yeah. And that was a big effect on like just because I noticed it myself as a guitar shop guy, how the big thing that I heard the phrase was like the quality of customer has changed. And I noticed that too. It was a bunch of more amateur players that were sort of armchair experts on guitars because they'd read a few things. And if you sell a used guitar or it has like a slight check on it that was not described, all vintage guitars have checking. That's just what happens. It's nitrocellulose lacquer. It checks, and that it has changed everything. It's so hard now. So we've navigated it pretty well, but I think some of the contributing factors to how and why the quality of customers has changed. I think the first one is that most small towns don't have little guitar shops anymore, and so you're like the normal player's experience of what an old guitar actually feels like, sounds like, plays like, smells like. They don't have. Any 1960s Gibson has a smell. Yeah. It's not a good one either at first. It usually smells like dead old person. Yeah, or like that kind of sour smell of old Gretches that have case rot of all the binding coming off. And so you have people that they've only played reissues. Right. And so they're trying to find deals and they'll buy guitars that are cheaper than a reissue or whatever. And then they get a vintage guitar. So my most public suffering in this world is selling a 67 ES175. Patent number pickups, pretty clean, but for specific issues, neck crack, saggy top, a couple other things. But I took pictures and did all that, and somebody got it and was like, well, the top is really saggy, and there's an old neck crack. And I was like sagging. Read the description, watch the videos, look at the pictures. And
I remember this one. Yep.
And Reverb ultimately said, well, the customer's unhappy. You're going to give the money back. I was like, no, I'm not. And
it's in my policy.
And it was like a 3-month fight back and forth. They tried to take money out of my account.
So this is the money stealing from your account moment.
Yeah. So they said, you either give the money back in 48 hours or we delete your account. And I said, do it. And they didn't delete my account. I still have an account. But
that's really funny.
I've been super gun shy on Reverb since then.
Do you sell on Reverb?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I think Reverb is the right tool for completely clean, no issues, middle of the road stuff. Anything that requires any explanation.
It is tricky. We've had a few issues with it ourselves where we sell a vintage. God, it was like a 175 or something. We had the same issues, not the same exact stuff.
Maybe the same guy.
God, it's like, and then sometimes you get they're like, well, we're not totally happy. It's like, and you can come to a negotiation where what they're fishing for usually is money on.
Yeah, they just want, hey, give me $500 off.
And sometimes it's worth it for us just to be like, you know what, we don't have time to spend. We're working on other things, but it's not worth it if it's a one-man shop, and that is your livelihood. And you spent that $500 to probably fix the guitar or to buy other guitars to sell in the future.
And that's what I think one of the best things is if you're buying and selling, don't spend the money, give it at least a week, even if you have a 3-day return policy, because someone's going to come back and say something crazy and need money.
That's happened to a good friend of ours, Jack, down in Florida. He's sold some nice pieces, and then it was a few months later. He's so nice. He's like, oh, I'll send your money back if you want, and pull.
Yeah, man. So yeah, I don't know. I'm very gun shy with Reverb these days. And I do think that Reverb has probably changed. So my friend Peter runs a hedge fund, and they invest in small software startup companies. And so when companies are looking for another round of funding to whatever they're doing to grow their business.
I know what you're saying.
So he told me, he's walking through his bullpen one day. He's like, I'm walking through the bullpen and I see your dumb face on a computer screen. And he walks up and he's like, what's this? And he's like, well, apparently there's this company called Reverb, and so Reverb, this guy was a super user and they burned him and he's not going to use the platform anymore. And reading the comments, it sounds like a bunch of people that have used the platform have said that customers aren't as good as they used to be, and so they're probably not going to use it. They're going to go back to eBay. And so my friend Peter's like, okay, well, let's go ahead and pass. We'll pass on reverb.com. And so he's like, well, Reverb may have gotten you for a couple grand, but you made sure they didn't get 35 million.
Good Lord. Yeah, and then Etsy bought them.
And then they sold Etsy.
Yeah. It's they've done pretty well.
Yeah. And I wonder, have they changed?
We still sell on Reverb, and we have a great contact, Eric, who we work with directly, who's very helpful. But it is tricky. The customers have not necessarily changed, but there's a lot of great customers we meet through there too, and it's often used as a billboard to bring them to our shop directly as well. I've just noticed that's just what happens, it seems. Yeah,
and it's interesting too, because I'm finding in the buying and selling world, people are using Reverb as the price guide now.
Right.
Which is bonkers. It's not reality.
Well, there's no reality anymore in the price guide. It's what we think.
That's true.
There's the Vintage Guitar magazine, where you look at your value, it's changed by the week you get it. So that doesn't work anymore. Reverb is like a price guide. We'll use it some in comps with our knowledge and in comps with what's out there, but it's usually for an 2015 American Standard Fender is what we're talking about when people come into the shop. It's not like when you're bringing a 1941 Gibbs or Martin.
Yeah.
It's a different situation.
And there's a whole nother component now and this could be a whole nother video, is that I now find that there are people prospecting on the idea of a guitar that is played by a celebrity, and that celebrity is probably going to die in the next couple of years.
Yes.
And so people are hunting and fishing for those. I just got a Willie Nelson, an N20 Martin, a 67.
Wow.
And, it's maybe we hang on to this for a couple of years.
I thought you were going to get into the whole Gibson world of what they're selling, the NFTs of their guitars or whatever now, and sort of you can speculate and buy shares if you.
No, this is.
They have new guitars they build in the custom shop, and they sell shares that you can be a partial owner of it, and then you can't ever play the guitar or touch the guitar. They keep it at the Gibson garage, and then you can sell it in the future to make money.
Sheesh.
And they sell these guitars. They value them at $60,000.
What?
For a new guitar, like the Iomi SG.
Okay.
Or something it's a new thing.
Okay.
We were actually featured in the Wall Street Journal. Casino Guitars, they interviewed us for it because they were like, what do you guys think about this? And I was like, I think it's a little funny.
Yeah.
And then they interviewed JC as well. Which, I get it. It's a business. It's a marketing.
It's a good marketing. It's a clever thing.
As an investor, I would run for the hills.
Yeah. Well, I think that the whole other conversation is I don't think the guitars are... You should work hard and save money and put money into retirement, and you should love guitars. I don't think guitars are reliable investments.
No, and I have some that are investments, but I play them, and I enjoy them.
Yeah.
And like they bring pleasure to me. Give me another funny story, and then I'll let you leave.
Funny story. Oh, man. Okay, so...
One more funny one.
Yeah, in like 2014, my wife and I moved to just outside New Orleans, where she grew up. Yeah. And like that's where I learned that just... your location really changes the kind of guitars you can find and how people negotiate. And so...
You have to learn Cajun.
Yes. So this was my first experience with like... I grew up with like hillbilly. This is the first time I grew up with like swamp creature kind of guy. Cajun. Just like...
Tom Segura has a great bit on Cajun. So watch that on Netflix. You'll enjoy it. He's gotten lots of hate mail for it.
Build a wall.
He's pretty much like...
I'm up for any wall that's around that state.
You've seen it. You know.
Yeah.
It's a great bit.
Dude, continue. Yeah. So we were in there. But, okay. So we're in South Louisiana. I have a David Gilmour Strat that I've built probably 10 or 15 guitars. So I built kind of a clone of a David Gilmour, again, because I couldn't afford a real one. Right. So I could build one for a couple $100. So I put it on Craigslist to sell it. And I get, like, the first morning it's up, I have 18 missed phone calls from the same number.
Good Lord.
And like probably 16 voicemails. And it's like, hey, this is Ricky. I was gonna buy. No, his name wasn't Ricky. His name was T. Shane.
T. Shane.
Like,
I like that better.
Hey man, this is T. Shane. I'm gonna buy your guitar. Why don't we? You meet me at the racetrack, like the gas station in the middle of town. And he's like,
racetrack.
He's like, I'm a buyer at $400. I was like, I'm asking $1,200. I'm not selling it for $400. And he's like, all right, man, I'll do $400. Like, meet me at 3:00. And I was like, no, I'm not meeting you. And I eventually he called me all day long. I was like, okay. And then he's like, what's your address? I want to come by your house and play it. I was like, no. He's like, well, how do I know it's going to work? He's like, you were trying to rip me off. It's like, I'm not trying to rip you off, man. And so he's like, 4:00 at the racetrack, come meet me. And so we finally meet.
So you met him.
I don't know. I was kind of hard up for money, and I mostly was like, what is this Cajun maniac? And so we're standing there, and I'm like, my wife just got off work. We only had one car. I was like, can you just hang out for a minute, make sure I don't get stabbed or robbed? And so my wife is sitting in the back of this gas station. I'm standing there with a guitar case, and this guy comes in, and he has like a shaved head, except the top of his head is like a ponytail. He looks like Goro from Mortal Kombat.
I love every bit of it.
He has basketball shorts on, but they're rolled up real short.
As they should be.
So like high thighs and then sleeveless tank top.
And this is your now present wife.
Best friend.
Okay, best friend. Bestie's friend.
This is T. Shane. So T. Shane walks in and he says, hey, you're Jeremy, huh? And I was like, hey, man. And he's like, let me see that guitar. And he plays it, and he has long, like crusty black fingernails, and it's so like it's Louisiana, so it's like 100 degrees outside.
Strings are like rotten.
And he's like, all right, man, I'm gonna give you $600 for this guitar. It's like, no, like I'm $1,200, like maybe $1,100, and he's like, hang on, he's like, I know you're gonna change your mind when you see this cash. And he shoves his hand into those little booty shorts and rakes out, just like keeps pulling up this sweaty tube sock.
Wet $2 bills.
Oh, yeah, sweaty tube sock. And he like shoves his whole arm in it, and he pulls out, like a wad of like 1s, 5s, 10s. So maybe $100. And he's like, come on, man. And I was like, no way. And he's like, you're going to regret every day from here on out that you didn't sell this guitar to T. Shane. I was like, no, I'm not.
Did you sell it to him?
No.
Oh, I was hoping this would have a happy ending.
It did not. Well, I sold it the next day to a tourist in New Orleans.
For $1,200?
Yeah, we drove to a hotel on Canal Street, and he paid me in $1,200. That's easy breezy. Yeah. So I think sometimes you're like, people will add pressure to you.
But you have the story of T. Shane. We do get the pressure thing sometimes. It's funny. It's like, come on, what kind of courtesy can you do here? What kind of courtesy? I'm like, what does that mean, courtesy? The courtesy is that I have the guitar that you want. You can have it for an exchange of currency. I
run a business in a town that you care about. I'm supporting people in your local community.
And that's a whole other story I don't need to get into. We have lots of fun ones, but I'm like, I just want to have Jeremy on and talk a little junk and see like because that's what you do. You hunt guitars. Yeah. You find guitars. You help people buy guitars. You help people sell guitars. You have a great YouTube channel. Thanks, man. It's fun to watch. I hope people go check it out. If you like ours, check it out. He's similar. He's more attractive than us, but that's.
If I had a bigger beard.
You will never have a bigger beard. Jonathan's beard is epic.
That's true.
It's glorious. He's an amazing man. He's like Thor meets Gomer Pyle. That's what I consider Jonathan. I put him on my shoulder and walk around sometimes.
Yeah.
Man, thanks for coming and hanging out
with
us.
Dude, it's so fun.
You want to do a podcast a little bit?
Let's do it.
Cool.
Cool, buddy.
I love you.
Love you too.
Casino Guitars signing out. Click subscribe. All that trash. Love you guys out there. Thanks, Jeremy.
Bye.
You're really pretty.